Hello there, and welcome back to this video on graphing sine and cosine functions while utilizing translation. So we're going to be looking at actually graphing the functions with amplitude changes, with period changes, and with midline adjustments. Okay, so we're going to go through some steps, and then we'll look at some examples about how to graph these functions. Okay, so again, here are the steps from the previous lesson, and I'm just going to cover them again. Really, the new thing that we added here is just period, right? So step one, determine your amplitude, period, and midline. You'll graph your midline, that's where you'll start. And then you'll determine, okay, your starting point. Am I starting at the midline? If I have a sine function, am I starting at a maximum or a minimum if it's a cosine function? And then what you need to do is you need to determine your ending point. And this is really critical for us. Previously, we've just been graphing each period as 2 pi. Very, very simple, 2 pi, split it into fourths. Well, now we have a different period. So based upon what our period is, we'll have to determine that endpoint and then cut up that period into four pieces. Okay, so that's step 5, cut it into fourths, and then we'll draw a smooth curve. All right, so let's go ahead and look at an example. And here's a basic function. Graph y equals cosine of theta divided by 4. Okay, so remember that a function kind of has this form. Y is equal to a, and for simplicity's sake, I'll use sine. A sine of b times theta plus k. All right, so if you look at this, clearly our amplitude in this situation is 1. We have a period which is 2 pi over b. In this case, right, our b value is 1/4. So 2 pi divided by 1/4, which ends up being 2 pi multiplied times 4 over 1, right? And when you divide by a fraction, you multiply by the reciprocal of the denominator. You guys learned that in what? 6th grade, 7th grade? You remember that. Okay, so 2 pi times 4, and that is 8 pi. Okay, so there's our period, 8 pi. And then our midline is our k value, which in this case is 0. Okay, so we're going to be centered on our x-axis. Okay, so here's our midline. And then I need to go ahead and pick my starting point. So my function, it is a cosine function. So I'm going to start at a maximum. Okay, where is my maximum? Well, my amplitude's 1, so from 0, I'm going to go up to 1, okay, and here's my maximum. And then what is my ending point? So there's my starting point. Where's my ending point? Well, the period's 8 pi, so I have to go over 8 pi, which is here, okay, and there's my ending point. So now what I need to do is I need to cut this into fourths, okay? I need to identify where my next point's going to be. So I'll cut 8 in half, that's 4, and then I'll cut this 4 in half, that's 2, right? So in another fourth. Okay, so I have a maximum, then I'll have my midpoint, then I'll have my minimum. Again, amplitude's 1, so down 1 from my midline, my midpoint, and then a maximum, right? And then here is, oh, that one was bad. Nice smooth curve. Okay, and there it is. Notice in these problems, they don't say graph 2 cycles or 2 periods. So it's depending upon kind of like, you know, your scale and what you have. All right, here is example 2. And we are asked to state the amplitude and period for the function. I'm also going to throw in midline just because it helps me graph. Y equals -4 cosine of 8 theta. Okay, so looking at this, I know that the amplitude is the A value, which is out front. So the amplitude is 4. If you put -4, it's not really, amplitude's always positive. Okay, so the negative just tells us that it's going to be x-axis reflection. Okay, and then our period is 2 pi over b, and in this case, b is 8. Okay, and if I reduce, it's pi fourths. Okay, so I'm going to have a cycle every pi over fourths, which should be interesting. Okay, so, midline. What's our midline? And it is y equals 0, right? It's my k value tacked on back here, which is 0. So here's the midline. Okay, and then I need my starting point. Okay, so it's a cosine function, so I know I'm going to start at a maximum or a minimum. And since my a value is negative, I'm going to start at a minimum. Okay, so I'm going to start down here at -4. And then where's my ending point? Well, my period is pi fourths. So I'm going to go over pi fourths, which happens to be here. Okay, and I'm going to end there, which, I mean, I don't have kind of, you know, it's not broken up for me. I don't have units that are perfect, so I'm just going to kind of eyeball it. I need to split this into fourths. So I'll cut it into half here, and cut that half into half, and that half into half. Okay, so I'm going to start at a minimum. I'll have my midpoint. I'll have a maximum, a midpoint, and then back to my minimum. So it looks something like this. Okay, and then you can go ahead and again, you could repeat this, right, for this cycle if I wanted to keep going. Okay, and there's 2 cycles of that graph. All right, let's go ahead and look at a practice problem for you. Here you go. State the amplitude and the period. They're kind of being, I don't know, maybe a little mean right here with this 2/3 amplitude. Well, go ahead and give it a shot. Pause the video, try this, and then I'll give you a hint. Okay, so hopefully you've tried this, and you have an amplitude of 2/3, right? So if you look at this scale, so here's 0, here's 1. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 units, right? So each unit is 0.2. So this is 0.2, 0.4, 0.6. So 2/3 is going to be roughly here. Okay. Sorry for that wacky scale. All right, so hopefully you've paused the video, you finished it, and tried it. Here is the solution. Okay. All right. Next example, I have about probably this one and another one, and then one more practice problem for you, and that's it. So here we're going to get everything. Okay, so it says graph y equals 2 sine of 2 theta minus 3. Okay, I want to go ahead and graph this. I need to know what is the amplitude. Okay, and in this case, our amplitude is 2. All right, what is the period of this graph? Okay, so it's going to repeat every 2 pi divided by its b value, which in this case is 2. Okay, so 2 pi divided by 2 is pi. Every pi we will repeat. And then our midline is our k value, and that is -3. So we're shifting down 3. So I'll go ahead and I'll draw my midline. Okay, now I'll draw the starting point. So I'm going to start, notice it's a sine function, so I'll start on the midline. Okay, and my amplitude's 2. So, well, here's my starting point, my ending point. Okay, what's our period? Well, it's pi. So I'm going to go over pi. Here it is. Okay, and I need to split this into fourths. So it looks like each unit I'll be having a critical point. Okay, and I'm going to go up 2. Amplitude is 2. So I'm going to go up to my maximum, back to the midpoint, down to the minimum, back to the midpoint. Okay, and I can go ahead and repeat this too, this direction. So midpoint, sorry, max, mid, so then this will be a minimum, a midpoint, a maximum, and a midpoint. Okay, and here's our curve. Ta-da! And there is your sine wave. All right, here is a practice problem for you. Please go ahead, pause the video, and try this one. All right, so hopefully you tried this one. In this case, your amplitude is 4, your period is 6 pi, and your midline is 2. So hopefully you had a midline dashed graph here. Dashed line. Okay. All right, and then here is the last practice problem for you. Go ahead and try this one. Please pause the video. All right, hopefully you paused it. Here is the solution. All right, and that does it for this video for graphing sine and cosine. Remember, go ahead, always find your amplitude, find your period, and find your midline, and then it's cake from there. All right, catch you next time. Peace out.